Hi everyone, I'm Subhashish Sahu, Head of Marketing at FinFlow. Welcome to the seventh episode of Finance Leaders in Focus, a podcast where we go behind the scenes with today's top finance leaders, explore their journeys, big wins, and hard lessons, plus the strategies, tools, and trends shaping the future of finance. In today's episode, Finance Through the Years from Legacy Systems to Intelligent Automation, I'm super excited to speak with someone who has not only seen finance tech evolve over 2 decades, but has also been at the forefront of that evolution. Joining us today is Jernita Prince, Senior Director of Billing and Accounts Receivable at Trace3. She brings a wealth of experience driving automation led transformation across companies of varying sizes, from fast growing startups to global enterprises. She's been there, done it all. And in this episode, we'll pick her brain to dig into the realities of finance automation, what holds teams back, how are software buying decisions evolving, and why AI is or isn't yet a line item in CFO budgets. Let's dive in. Welcome, Janita. How has your day been?
It's been great, Sebastian. Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak with you today.
Definitely. Pleasure having you. Okay, so before we actually get into the crux of the conversation, we would love the audience to know about how has your journey been. Of course, you have been a part of some of the most transformative finance teams across industries of varying sizes, right? But would love to understand how did this all start? Like, why did you choose finance as a career? What motivated you towards it? And how has this entire journey spanned out so
Oh, yeah. So, one of the things I know that's a part of my innate
far?
personality is facts. And
Okay.
so, working with accounting and math and finance is very factual.
Okay.
The numbers doesn't lie when you have actual and accurate information. What I find to be most intriguing
Hmm.
is making data driven decisions.
Right.
And as you know, working in accounting and finance, the data is key.
Hmm.
And with this data, using it to understand where we are and where we want to go and
Hmm.
creating a strategic plan to get there. So that part excites me.
Okay, that's perfect. And would you also like to touch upon some of the companies or the experiences that you've had in the past?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So I've worked in many arenas and I pride myself on my diverse background
Hmm.
in AR when it comes to from working with healthcare to hospitality, manufacturing,
Hmm.
recycling,
Okay.
now in technology consulting. So
Yep.
with all of those different entities,
Hmm.
I notice what's consistent is the need for improvement, no
Okay.
matter where you are on this journey,
Hmm.
and that there's always something to figure out.
Right.
And
Yeah,
mhm.
I think that's pretty interesting because majority of the finance leaders that I constantly keep talking to, right, they kind of pick an industry and then they stick to it, right, and then they just try to go deeper and deeper into that same exact problem statement, right. But in
Mhm.
your case, it has been a little different. That you have been across industries. Do you think that has in any way shaped how you think about problems right now? That you're not to a particular set of industry and then you try to explore every area and then just try to find the best solution that's out there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this vast background, what it helped me do is be more innovative
Hmm.
in how I think about solutions
Great.
because I'm not limited to healthcare or manufacturing. I'm able to pull different concepts that
Yeah,
applied in different areas to other spaces, right? And
absolutely.
think more broadly on how you can improve a process and not being restricted to thinking about it from one perspective. So, no, I absolutely think it adds much value.
That's amazing. Okay, I think we'll move on, shift gears a little bit, and then quickly go into the challenges that you faced, right? So, obviously, you have worked for the last 2 decades across industries, across so many different roles, right? You must have seen a lot of challenges, and especially when we talk about adoption of automation, right? So, could you help us with some examples or certain citations, what you thought were very big challenges that you were able to overcome? Or if there is anything in particular that holds teams back, is it like the mindset, or is it like the systems, or is it something else? Like, what's your point of view on
Well, I think it's all of those
that? Okay.
actually. So first
Okay.
starting with the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So the team who has to actually adopt and use the technology, you
Mm-hmm.
have to have their buy-in.
Great.
And that's a big struggle because you're telling me that this technology is now going to do what I used to do.
Right.
right?
Right.
And so the fear of improving yourself out of work is major. It
Right.
is. And for a lot of departments, not just within the AR and finance arena, but abroad. You
Right.
know, you go to fast food restaurants and now you have a computer taking your order from the machine and
Yeah.
robots bringing. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would define as the first challenge. And that's on the front line.
Yeah.
When I think about even like leadership, adopting it is making sure it's sustainable. Can you trust it? And what is the long term cost to ensure that we don't revert back?
Okay.
Many times I've found where people want to run dual systems, manual and technology, it's the lack of trust.
Yep.
And maybe it's because it's happening so fast, it's hard to believe that technology can be smarter than I am, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I think those would be the biggest challenges I would speak on is first having one understand the importance of it.
Okay.
And what I find myself having to do is reframe AR as a strategic function and sell
Absolutely.
to my partners how this is really allowing us to increase our collective IQ,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And so now, where you used to be more transactional, you're freed up. You have now the mental faculties to be more strategic
Yep.
and analytical and deep dive and do those things that technology is not yet doing. So that's kind of how I like to approach it.
Absolutely. I think I would like to touch upon that very point where you said that you have to enable AR as a strategic function, right? And
Mhm.
for that to happen, while we talk about technology, here to be specific, right now there's a big debate that's going on that is AI going to take away a lot of back office functions? And AR has always been considered a back office function, right? Which is there to crunch
Mhm.
numbers, follow up, and get their money in, right? But now that thought process is changing. So how are you seeing that right now, and how have you been thinking about this in your current organization?
Yeah, so it's realigning your metrics, goals, and expectations, right?
Yeah.
Because to that point, when goals, AR historically used to be like processing so many invoices within this amount of time and
Correct.
generating, so many collection calls.
Right.
Well, now it's not so much as how many you can get out. For me and my team, it's understanding why can't we get it out?
Correct.
Now, how I want to understand more what are the gaps and barriers that's preventing
Yeah.
invoices from going out on time and more focusing on root causes and partnering. So
Correct.
what it's doing essentially to me is creating more collaboration
Yeah.
in terms of understanding and working with different teams of how can we improve the upstream process
Yep.
to improve the customer experience, right? And so that's one aspect. When I think about it from cash apps and collections likewise, it's not important enough for me to know that you're going to pay, but
Mm.
I need to understand why didn't you pay on time
Correct.
and start digging through those trends and really identifying and honing in on, okay, do you pay once a month, every 3 weeks, really understanding, and even so far as, and I'm sure AI can assist with this at some point,
Yeah.
by product type. Are you
Mm.
paying services faster than product? So it's a lot of things like that. So I need to understand more so why it didn't happen the way according to the terms of the contract,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I need to understand that part,
Yeah.
not just the clicks.
Yeah, and especially with lean teams, what I have observed is that it becomes extremely difficult for those teams to identify these patterns, right? Because as the business grows and the volume of invoices grows and the complexity grows with different product streams, different business models in place, different pricing terms in place, right? That is the place where you need AI to step in and help the human take decisions faster, right? Even in terms of
Yeah.
collections. So collection analysts probably used to spend hours or days just to figure out the right time to reach out to a person for an outstanding invoice, right? They had to manually create a work list for themselves that they would want to follow through the day so that they can have a very effective usage of their time. But now all of that is being done by AI, right? So they just have to do the strategic work of following up with the right person at the right time so that they can maximize the efficiency of their time and get maximum collections in, right? Which actually adds back to the revenue of the company, right? So with all
Well,
of
what I
this,
would add,
yeah, yeah, please.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to say that with all of this happening, it is just kind of changing the way finance teams as a whole used to work. And that is also changing the mindset of finance leaders on how they are thinking about their current teams, right? How are they thinking about having AI or other advanced tech to kind of become an assistant to their existing team
Mhm.
members and not something that is going to replace them, right? As you rightly said before as
Yeah, and even to piggyback from that, when I think
well.
about it from a collections perspective,
Yeah,
I like to think most customers want to pay,
correct.
right? If you
Yeah.
vetted them from a credit risk perspective when you brought them in. So to your point, in addition to knowing who to contact and when,
Hmm.
but now you have more time to deep dive on the customer's issue to improve
Absolutely.
their experience. So when you think about issues such as sales tax and manufacturing, this was returned or the product is not valid,
Yeah.
then you can dive more into what caused this issue for our customer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then now you become the conduit to the business, and this is how you become a strategic
Hmm.
um, function. Is now you're strategically thinking, how do we need to restructure our processes so we cannot have this issue,
Yeah.
right? Because when you think about a customer not paying, there's a reason they did not. Let's
Correct.
solve that, right?
Yeah.
So, in addition to reaching out more strategically, why didn't you pay? And
Yeah.
that's the part that becomes more strategic. You're strategizing and you're collaborating to understand that we do something incorrectly upstream that prevented the timeliness of cash flow. And so
Absolutely.
that's where you convert from strategic to just transactional, is understanding the root behind it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if we just take it in terms of the order to cash terminologies, right? It's just not about resolving the disputes once they happen. It's about eliminating the disputes right from the beginning, right? You don't let them happen at
Exactly.
the first place, right? And that just brings in so much of positivity and superpower into your own processes, right? Yeah,
And that's how you become a strategic function, right?
exactly.
When you're thinking more like, how do we like mitigate these risks? And when it
Yeah.
comes before us, how do we ensure it doesn't resurface, right? And have the proper processes in place, and you test and you vet. And from there, you may learn we may need some type of automation
Hmm.
or AI to assist.
Exactly.
You
Amazing answer, Jernita. So we'll kind of move
know,
on and move to the next question that we have, right? So now that we have talked about how our finance teams thinking about AI, right? Let's now dig into certain aspects where we discuss some of the initiatives that you have driven yourself or that you have witnessed firsthand, and also help us understand on how are you able to evaluate the success of those projects? Like were there some early signals that you had in mind that if this happens I can like term this project as successful, or if this doesn't happen then this doesn't go through and we push this back? So what was that thought process? Would love to like hear some examples that you
okay, so I will speak to a couple.
have. Okay.
So one
Hmm.
from a cash app perspective. So again, going back to the data, if
Hmm.
the data is showing me that 50% of my cash apps or whatever percentage is very manual and they're one to one.
Hmm.
So when I'm working with it and I know my auto post rate is 50%, right?
Okay.
Well, and that's mainly because I can only easily post at 50%. So when I bring in a new automation tool,
Okay.
as I have twice. What I want to understand, I know 50% is the minimum of what I expect because I'm getting that now, right?
Correct.
It's easy. But what I would like to see is with the data, what are those other things that would drive that's preventing me from hitting a higher percentage? So let me give you an example. Discounts.
Hmm.
Many times, if a customer is taking a discount, if the system is not understanding that or the ERP is not set up correctly to reflect proper discounts, it's not going to auto post. And
Okay.
so now you are having to manually control this. So when I'm thinking about my ERP system, I've already vetted to understand what are some of those things that's preventing me to post cash better, smarter, and faster. Whether it's discounts, missing remittances, not being able to read it clearly, understanding. So when I'm determining what good looks like, I've already done some calculation. This is the percent that has discounts. This is the percent where we're not receiving remittances.
Yeah.
And I've calculated those numbers right from the volume. So I know from the start with this automation what I expect to see and what things can I improve while as the system continues to learn, for an example. Understand reading remittances by POs and this
Okay.
customer name says Jack Apples, but it should be James Smarts
Hmm.
and the system learning. So it's understanding from the beginning what my barriers are. And if I remove those barriers, what I expect to see. Right.
Okay.
And so now that I've done that, once it's lunch, I'm managing, I'm tracking, I'm looking to see, okay, we've checked this box. Are we seeing this percentage rate increase? If
Okay.
we don't, I need to go back into surgery and understand what did we miss? What
Okay.
is not happening that we're expecting to happen? What tweaks should we make? And let's be clear. Many times you have to change your internal processes. We
Hmm.
do not want to automate waste. We do not want to automate flawed processes that were invented from an antiquated thought process. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say another one I would think about, even from an invoicing perspective, when I'm thinking of automating invoices, so my team is not sending them and stuffing envelopes and mailing invoices or
Yeah.
actually having to send it. When
Yeah.
I think about the automation of actually the system generating the invoice and sending it out, I would have to, going back to the data, how
Yeah.
many qualify for this, right? Let's
Hmm.
start with those first. And then we'll do different levels of iteration as
Hmm.
we understand more and more what the system is capable of. But bringing in this understanding what you want, having that vision up front,
Yeah.
and building a roadmap to get there, many times it does work better in small iterations. So you can have those small wins, work out the kinks, and then build on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think with both the points that you just mentioned, right? One follow up question that comes to my mind, it's not a question, it's just kind of a statement, is like for you to be able to think about a transformation project, data readiness and correctness is absolutely required. I think you would agree on that, right? If that's not there on the first place, and if you're not able to identify what's wrong within your current processes, you thinking about a transformation project would is not going to solve it, right? It's just going to
Not at all.
overcomplicate the things that you have planned. So it's absolutely important for you to be able to first identify what you are trying to solve for, have correct data in place, and if you're not able to do that, then go to specialists who can help you get to that point, and then probably think about a transformation project with having an end goal in mind, right?
Yeah, and so even
Hmm.
when I think about the using your language and goal, so
Yeah.
when I circle back to that, you have to first have a vision. What
Correct.
does good look like?
Okay.
I think many times the challenge is we try to take what we have and
Hmm.
build good around that by piecing here and there and tweaks. But sometimes you have to use it from a blank canvas. If I
Correct.
was starting from scratch, what would good look like?
Hmm.
And then you map out, I've done this. I map out my vision.
Hmm.
Then I align it to what we have, and then vision here, what we have here, and then I work to close the gap,
Yeah.
right? And then that's where, to your point, you find out I don't have enough information
Hmm.
to know we can go from here to there.
Correct.
And like as you stated, that's when you leverage other tools and assistance so you can really have that,
Exactly.
good answering information so you can make the best decision as you
Exactly.
think about growth and scaling. Mhm.
Exactly. Okay. Perfect. So we are almost done with the conversation, but just one last leg remaining is where we would love to understand, take your perspective on how you think about the evolution of software buying decisions. Like how are modern finance teams prioritizing right now? And do you think, although AI has been the talk of the town, everyone is talking about it and is trying multiple versions of it in some form or the other, but are CFOs and senior finance leaders like you actually thinking about it as a budget in the entire technology side? Or do you think there's still time for that?
I think the business is still growing to think
Hmm.
that way, organizations, but they're getting there because
Yeah.
they're realizing the time spent. And now with this remote environment, the
Yeah.
trust, are people working, are they not? Am I getting the bang for my buck?
Hmm.
But I will say it's key. It's absolutely key to ensure that automation is a part of your bottom line.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking about the company's 3 to 5 year growth plan, it's
Hmm.
essential to know how automation plays a role into that picture,
Yeah.
right? How you're going to improve, even if you're thinking from your go to market strategy.
Yep.
I would think you would want to include automation and how you communicate these things and build your processes, right?
Yeah.
And that's on the front line, but working through the entire process, even to back office, I would, and this is one of my goals, is always, is the more acquisitions we bring on as the company grow, I want to remain flat with my head count because my processes are so sustainable. You can plug and play, and if there are any areas where it does not apply, we've
Hmm.
created space for it to troubleshoot and figure it out. So I absolutely think it's essential for companies to ensure that automation and growth is a part of their bottom line. If it's not, they may find themselves regressing or spending more money in areas where it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. But just a follow up question there. Do you have any certain areas in mind, areas of finance where you think AI and automation can play a significant role, both in terms of reducing the workload of their existing employees and also in enhancing the efficiency with which their current employees are working? Any thoughts there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I think about even like from just understanding the
Hmm.
growth strategy. AI definitely has to be a part of understanding your customer base,
Yeah.
right? Who are you winning with? Which customers, which market, what is vertical that's helping me grow? Is it in the services, product? Is it if you're doing manufacturing, is it this type of product? Or is it,
Hmm.
so just understanding that's technology, right? Understanding where am I winning and forecast that. Which customers are most impactful for me to go and pursue so I can continue to grow their business. Technology also help in understanding with some your customer base. If you know your customer base is healthcare,
Hmm.
having technology retrieve information about different things that are changing in healthcare and how your business can help feed it. So having that information fed help you understand, wow, healthcare is transitioning to this space and now they've improved this area. How does
Okay.
that impact your business and what growth should you expect to see? From a back office perspective,
Hmm.
what volume invoice type should you expect to start seeing as a because the thing with the back office for AR is highly contingent upon growth,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of how I think about it. I'm always out in the future thinking that if you guys are doing your thing here, growing the business, I need to brace myself and be prepared.
Yeah.
So that way we're not on our heels. Oh my God, we have all this extra work to do. But
Yeah.
when I think about even invoicing for customers' portals, they need to have a way that as if you're building your SMB business, small, medium business, they
Hmm.
need to have a portal where they can go in and see their invoices, pay those invoices online, dispute
Absolutely.
online, net feed through, and even at some point have different codes and ways to communicate to the operations area, right? If you're having issues with you sent me the wrong product. Well, we need to communicate that back, right? So,
Yeah.
I can go on all day, Sebastian, but when I can go on all day with this thing. So,
Absolutely. I think with that point, right, there's another question that's coming to my mind. So, for the longest time, I think finance as a function has been seen as people who can save money for the company. They've been seen as cost savers, right? But with the
mhm,
recent advent of AI and modern tech, right, it has been seen that finance teams have now become teams that are creating value for the company, right? So
exactly.
how do you think about this? How has this thing happened? Because you would have seen it firsthand on where at a point that you were purely focused on how do I save money for the company to now you thinking about how do I grow the revenue for the company, right? So how has this shift
Yeah, no, that's a very good question because what you're
happened?
stating is you're going from a cost center to a profit center.
Correct,
Right.
exactly.
And so, yeah, so converting to a profit center is really impactful because what you're seeing is when you're not spending money and if it's budgeted, then you're making the company money. So, and then you're thinking of ways of how can I be more creative
Yeah.
and adding value. So, it's to your point, how can I be value add? But that goes back to being a strategic function
Yep.
and you're impacting business outcomes. So, when I think about the AR sector, if we're seeing here, this customer is having this issue and we're using this intel to feed back up how we structure deals. Let's think about it from an AR perspective.
Hmm.
If we know this customer is, when I was working at another organization, Acuity,
Yeah.
and the way it was structured is their terms was phenomenal. And with the terms, if you were to generate sales after this day, you had an additional month, almost 2 months to pay.
Correct.
Well, now you can restructure your sales deals,
Yeah.
right? With this in mind, you're using this data. How do I need to restructure my deals? Likewise, with,
Yeah.
like, how
Yeah.
do I think about if you're going to pay once a month, do I need to think about adding different discounts to
Right.
encourage you to pay earlier?
Yeah.
So it's understanding the data, how the customer works, and
Mhm.
then using that to go back and rethink how we're communicating with our customers. And from an AR perspective, your terms are your terms, 1%, 10 days, net 30, next 60.
Yeah.
But how does that apply if the customer payment structure doesn't align and you've
Absolutely.
accepted that? So
Yeah.
now to me, I think working and partnering with the business, you use this information to have different conversations.
Yeah, I think it's all about evaluating the ROI as well, right? For example, let's say that you are $100 million company and you are having, let's say, $1 million in bad debt every year, right? Now, if you can actually think about it in a way that if you spend around, let's say, $50,000 and acquire a tool that can help you save this $1 million, right? The ROI here is 20x, right? So if you are
Exactly.
having this thought process in mind and you're going about solving the problems in this way, I think probably then it would kind of change the entire dynamics of how the company progresses. And now you're not only saving that money that was going out, you are actually creating much bigger impact by even probably saving a few more millions of dollars, because bad debt just keeps accumulating, right? It just becomes a heap of bad debt over and over the years, and then at a point you are just not able to tally for what just happened, right? So if you're able to invest
Exactly.
in the right solutions at the right time and figure out the entire roadmap, as you have perfectly mentioned, on how you think about building a strategic function, I think every finance team would be at a better place at what they are right now, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely, exactly. Because what you're referring
Hmm.
to goes back to having it as a part of your bottom line. So,
Correct.
kind of when you think about it, if you're already thinking about your growth, and to your point, you can repurpose those funds.
Yep.
So, money that would have originally been budgeted for this, now
Hmm.
because we have this automation, we're
Yeah.
going to repurpose and invest back into the business, grow different
Hmm.
areas. So, I think it very much speaks to ensuring that AI is a part of your bottom line
Hmm.
and it feeds back into the company when you think about the ROI.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure,
Yes,
Janita. I think that's been a great conversation. Pleasure having you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining this today. I think everyone who would be listening to this episode is going to take away a lot of insights from your own experiences and your own thought processes that you have shared on this episode. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Sebastian.
Okay, sure. So, for everyone else who is listening to this podcast and has been tuned in so far, thank you so much. I'm sure you would go away with a lot of key takeaways from this episode, but this is not the end. We have so many different conversations that are planned ahead. So, stay tuned and have a great day. Bye bye.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect.